Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to this edition of Prime Art. Tomorrow is Africa Day, and from morning till now, my media Prime has been celebrating this day from the African perspective. That is why this evening we are not going to be talking about relationship and marriage issues. We are going to be looking at Africa. What our leaders have been doing for the past decades. We understand that they came together to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the African Union and made a commitment to silence the guns across the African nations. But till date, we have conflicts rocking almost all the parts of Africa. We know of the conflicts up north. Somalia is in conflict, Libya, and we also know about what is happening in Central Africa. Boko Haram is there in West Africa, and even in East Africa, there are conflicts. We are going to be looking at the reasons why African leaders have not been able to match what with actions, trying to silence the guns. The guns keep smoking. Even in Cameroon, where we are doing this program live from our headquarters in the economics capital, Douala, we understand that there are crises rocking the English-speaking regions and the northern part of our country, including neighboring nations like Chad, Nigeria. Down we have conflicts in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are asking why things have not gone the way African leaders have planned. Is it that they lack the will to stop the guns from smoking? Oh, the fact that there are external forces that are pushing other agendas to destabilize the nation, as many would like to put it. We are going to be discussing this with our panelists who are seated in the house. Andrin, Atem, Ebako is a Panafricanist. He is in the house with us. So good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum Leonard, and the panelists who are here tonight, and all the viewers of my media Prime, and all the Africans worldwide that are watching this program. I hope that our analysis will be able to share light to every African that is watching this program, either today or tomorrow or anytime soon in the future, be able to learn more in our analysis that we are going to make here tonight. Thank you very much.
Also with us is Mr. Ndiwum, Emmanuel. He is a civil society activist. Good evening and welcome, Mr. Emmanuel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Leo. Good evening to Bujumbura, Accra, Cairo, of course, Yaoundé, and to the Kum Fondom, where I come from, and especially to the fund of Kum and all the Kum artists, especially Prince Afokom, who have been impacting Africa in the world of arts in general and Cameroon in particular.
Okay, we are also in the company of Mr. Samuel Teke, who is also a Pan-Africanist, an educationist. He wears many caps, but a positive thinking African who wants to see Africa at the top of the world's map or charter. We are glad to have you with us this evening, Mr. Teke.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and for the panelists and our televiewers, good evening. Today is African Day, and I'm sure we're going to have something out of this day, and we'll make it a better Africa.
African Day, I'll start with you, Andrin. Atem, Ebako, a day to celebrate Border Africa.
Yes, Mr. Liu, I think that today it's rather a day where the African people should mourn the collapse of the Organization of the African Unity, which was organized and endorsed in 1963, May 25th. We realized that that vision and the founding fathers of those visions were eliminated, and the vision was halted, and at one point Africa is not again that dream of our founding fathers. Today we remember that great day, which we have another pillar or another symbolism, which is like a counterfeit of the OAU, which is the AU, which is purely an organization of the EU and the United Nations. I remember in 2002, after a year later, a year later, after the 9/11 bombing of 2001, the World Trade Center in America, in 2002 we had the emergence of the AU, the African Union, which was brought in here by the EU and the United Nations as a body to supervise and to protect their interests in Africa. And the AU did not derive from the spirit of Africanism and does not reflect and uphold the spirit of our ancestors, and does not have any link and ties with the OAU that was instituted in 1963 by our founding fathers. So this is the state in which we are seeing Africa today, that you can imagine that the African Union in Addis Ababa was constructed by the Chinese as a free gift for 200 million, which is even less than an amount which one of our sons here in Africa, in Nigeria, Davido, bought a car for $330 million. A young boy bought a car, and a whole organization of Africans representing the secrecy of Africa, a building that was supposed to be a museum and have effigies and idols of Africans' history in that building, to keep the identity of Africanism and to uphold the spirit of our founding fathers. But you can imagine that in all of this history that we know that took place in 1963, it is an embarrassment to see that Africa today has become a product of the West, that until the UN and the EU is able to plant another body in Africa called the AU, which the AU does not even, is not being sponsored by the Africans themselves, gets its funds from the West. And you come to realize that with such an organization, Africa cannot emerge, neither any member states of Africa can emerge. We all witnessed the summit in France, where Macron, a 43-year-old boy, called in his governors to come and meet him in France, and finally gave them $30 billion $30 billion or so as a token of the meeting that they went to meet him in Paris. So you tell me that how is it possible that a boy of 43 years old will summons people of 60, 70, 80, 85 to come and meet him? These are some of the things that we need to address as Africans, and these are some of the things that we are saying, that this day is not really a day to celebrate, but it's a day where all Africans come to regret and to mourn the fall of the OAU and to erect the spirit of our founding fathers. I remember in the picture was His Excellency Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, who stood in the picture among the 33 head of states in Africa by then, who came together to endorse the OAU, to do what? To foster continental political, economical relations, and to foster the decolonization and to make sure that neo-colonialism does not exist in Africa. This was the vision of the OAU, and this is not what we see today with the AU. We have had a lot of insecurities in Africa, even as we speak, from Somalia to Ethiopia to Sudan to Gabon to Central Africa to Cameroon, Niger, name them. The OAU has been silent. I remember very well, even at the moment when Idris Deby was being killed, the OAU, the president at that period, being a member of that country, stood by and nobody said anything. When the NATO entered Africa, bombed the hell out of Libya, took the lives of 1,200 souls in Libya, including men, and children and women, the African Union did not say anything. The killings we are seeing today in Africa, the AU have not said anything. So this is what we are calling on today, that this day should rather be a day where all Africans come out and understand that our unity is going to be our only survivor, because an organization as AU, as far as I'm concerned, at one point must be dissolved. Let me give an example here, Mr. Liu. I remember very well. Let me just a second, please. Yeah. I remember when Sankara was killed in Burkina Faso. Blaise Compaoré took over, ruled for a certain period, but the people of that country never forgot the symbolism of Sankara. And at one point, they stood up and brought down Blaise Compaoré, and that is how we are going to bring down the AU.
Okay, Elvis Atanga, good evening to you. Nene Alain Chisap, Jack Shiglo, who is always watching. Hello to everyone in the studio. And to you, Mark Amos, Andy, good evening to all of you. Eno Edwin, thank you so much for always being there for us on social media. We are glad to have you accompany us, discuss the place of Africa in the world today. Today is African Day. Where is Africa? And when we talk of the other continents, now you buy what he's saying, that this is not a day to celebrate Africa, but a day to mourn. Should it not be a day to reflect where we are and where we went wrong?
Well, Mr. Leo, I think you just said it the way I wanted to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I think when the going gets tough,
the tough gets going.
The tough gets going.
Mm-hmm.
And you make a stop. You ask yourself, where did I go wrong? Now, where can I fix it? If you sit down today, I think Africans should be reflecting where they went wrong. Because I, as an individual, I am sure that the Federal Abbas, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Haile Selassie that he mentioned, the Onyobes, the Mumis and the Wanjis are not resting in peace today, because the spirit of these founding fathers of African independence has been derailed so much by the present African states. They have taken a different turn, which is different from what the founding fathers of Africa actually planned and had in mind for Africa. So we need to pray, take this day to also pray for their souls, that even if those who came after them have failed Africa and they have continuously failing Africa, they should find a way to be resting in peace. Now, where I think Africa as a nation, as a continent, is the largest as far as the surface area is concerned, and population-wise, it should be second, if my geography memory is not failing me. But shockingly, Africa, out of these 54 countries, you cannot count up to 10 of them that are not getting the sounds of the gun every day. And the unfortunate part of it is that Africa has decided to go in the dispersed rounds. As you were talking about EU, you discover that EU is a bloc made up of the big five in Europe. But when you come to Africa, you discover that the problem of Somalia is only suffered by Somalia. The problems of Ghana are only suffered by Ghana. I don't want to talk about EU, because I, for one, for a very long time, I've always said that in Jangi house in my village is more structured and very proactive and active again, more than the EU. So to me, I don't even consider EU as an association that Africa should be talking about. And that one, I put it as a weakness for the African. Because at one point in time, when you discover that an organization is not yielding fruit, because nobody can place a finger on one crisis in Africa that EU has ever solved. They condemn, they use their TVs and their microphone, they condemn to the strongest term. But no concrete action has ever been taken. So I think that a lot of things need to be done in Africa. When I'll be coming back, I'll be telling you.
Okay, a lot needs to be done in Africa. Mr. Teke, somewhere we are celebrating this day. I'm sure a week after the meeting in France by African heads of state to look for a headway as far as a revamping African economy is concerned. Should this not have played that role, that moment for African nations to gather either in South Africa, in Tripoli, in Yaoundé, and then invite the French president to chart the way forward for Africa this day? How do we celebrate a day with seemingly nothing happening from the African heads of state?
Well, like you said, it's shocking because we have African leaders who act as if their rights belong to someone else. You see, the problem of Africa can only be solved by Africans. Until the day we take up responsibility that this is our problem, this is our trouble, and we can solve it, then we'll start having solutions to our problems. This is what I like to say, that Africa is not going to be changed, or any change is not going to occur by reactionary Africans, but by proactionary Africans. We will not be able to change this country if we keep reacting, if we react by everything we see. What we should be doing is, what solution can we provide for the things that are going wrong? Our leaders need to understand that this is our problem and we should be able to solve it. That's why when I see people chant at the White House and then call the UN and call all the organizations out there, those guys are not ready to solve anybody's problem. It's just like you and your wife, you have issues, and then you're going to complain to your mother-in-law or to your father-in-law. It's an act of irresponsibility as a husband and as a man. So if we have issues in Africa and we are taking it out there, taking it to France, taking it to US or to UN for them to solve it for us, it's an act of irresponsibility. Our leaders should be able to stand to their feet and say, this is our problem. We should be able to solve it. If Cameroon is having crisis, let us be able to solve it within ourselves. Or better still, look for other African countries and put all of them together. Africa is getting worse every day. Shooting, fighting, crisis, crying, people are dying. What are we supposed to do? The African countries should gather together, see themselves as one, and figure out a solution to their problem. I always say this: the problem is not abroad. The problem is in Africa, and the solution is in Africa. Our forefathers did what they could do. That's how far they could have gone. But this is our own age. What can we do? Is a question we should be asking ourselves. So the African Day should be a day of, let me use the word sober reflection, a day where we should sit down and bring too many questions on the table and start sorting out solutions. So that the next time we want to celebrate a day like this, a lot of changes would have occurred. And where would that happen? It begins from us. You as a man, as a parent, say African Day begins from your home. What are the issues you have to solve from your home? You move that to your community, move that to your village, move that to your region, move that to your nation, and then the entire continent will have it, and these problems will be over. Then we can now celebrate African Day with a lot of joy, because we can actually see what we wish that we can see.
Yeah, but would you have loved to see some key events across the continent calling on Africans to know the true value of this day and looking forward to celebrating the day?
Sure.
Seemingly nothing is happening.
Yes, nothing is happening because you can't have celebration and fight at the same time. We're having an online conference today and have a lot of people, ambassadors talking and all of that. And one of the speaker was talking about unity. That one of the things that the Western world will always fight against is a unity between the Africans abroad and the Africans in the homeland. That the Western world will ensure that these people never unite, because if they do, Africa is going to take a total different shape. But we cannot celebrate. There cannot be key events happening because some fighting is happening in the Anglophone region of Cameroon. Then the Francophone cannot be celebrating. In Tanzania they are fighting. In this place they are fighting. There's no way Africans can come together, because our leaders have not even thought that before a day like this should come, they should all sit together. Let's pick a place and all the leaders settle there and let's do a celebration and bring out solution to the problems we have. There's no come together and it's impossible to have a celebration.
Okay. Good evening to all the panelists. Thank you for celebrating Africa's Day. Mr. Ebako has a good point about the AU, but I think he is contradicting himself. How does someone who claims to be a Panafricanist be a tribalistic person? I don't know how he's tribalistic. From previous episodes of the show, Mr. Ebako has shown that he is against the people of the Northwest. Can we have a concrete reason for that? I don't, I am from the Northwest, he's from the Southwest. I'm not sure he hates me. We are very good friends. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Let the viewers learn that the AU headquarters was spied upon for 5 years by the Chinese. Yes, the information we have. The Chinese put cameras and linked all the internet connections back to China, using them to spy on Africa. A shame to all our presidents. Elvis Lyonga, writing from Boya. Good evening. Pakum Jean is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Yes, we are today fighting and from what we understand, we are so divided from our colonial history, but united from our true cultural history. That is something that we seemingly are not paying attention to.
Mr. Liu, our cultural history was the beauty of Africa, and our different tribes and ethnicity is the beauty of Africa. We cannot say that our problem is tribalism. You see, one of the developments that the West brought to us was division, and they also brought to us what I call, they began the instigation of ethnic background civil wars. And how did it happen? We also remember that in 1884, one of the major things which they did was to make sure that they gave Africa what I call the special status. That simply means, in other terms, it simply means special case study. That is why you realize that Africa, as a matter of fact, does not have its sovereignty, because there are some things which are very challenging. A boy who was 16 years of age in school was going out with a woman that was older enough to be his son. That is Macron, that his own wife is older than him for 25 years. A man who is calling on elderly people. This is an abomination to the African culture and African value. To see elders report to France as governors, it's only to tell you that our countries are what I call special status, because you remember that it is very obvious. We have seen that at the level of the UN National Security Council, we are not equal. This simply tells you that we are not only marginalized at that level, but they do not have any intentions to see us as one people. And this is how they came down to Africa with all of this partition. You go to what caused the war in Rwanda is a Belgian. What caused the war in Sudan, you realize that it is a colonialist. What caused the war here in Cameroon, in Nigeria, that is all what they did. Right to this country, Rwanda, where they favored the minority tribe, which was a Tutsi, against the Hutus. And when they left, it now became a serious fight, and that fight went on for over how many years? So what am I simply trying to say here is that we have a way out of this. It is true that we have understood that we cannot depend neither on the West nor on our leaders. But today, the African population, which is a very growing awareness of Africa today, that there's a need for Africans to come together. We are talking here of almost close to 1 billion African youths. What am I saying here, Mr. Liu? If these youths understand where Africa is coming from and they come together in solidarity with the Africans abroad, in the diaspora, all walks of life, I would want to really believe that we can win this struggle and we can make Africa great and we can regain the honor of Africa. That is the way I look at it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, but the place of African culture, the history, seemingly Africans don't know their history.
Yes, Africans don't know their history is because of what I call not only a civilization or what we call globalization. Africa is losing its value because you look at our educational system, we are not taught our history. I mean, a lot of Africans do not know where Africa is coming from. So these are some of the things that if you keep living a life and not know where you come from, it's just like a tree that has no roots. So
we are told it's a foreigner that discovered River Niger.
Yeah, but there were Africans living there in the river.
That's history.
That's history, but that's Western history. That's from the Western perspective. We need to be able to
that an African is told that maybe the Vuri was discovered by a Portuguese. This was discovered by foreigners. Yeah, and we still study this in the 21st century.
Yeah, but if you look at it on both sides, they are wrong on one side, and on the other side, they are also right, because they came and discovered it, but they came and as well met Africans living there. So if Africans were to write their own history, that history on their own part would be a huge contradiction. So it all depends on what we are going to teach ourselves and teach our children, the generations tomorrow who are going to take over the freedom struggle. So these are the things that we are saying. That it goes way back to how will I call it, to education. We don't understand our education here. What is happening here is that if Africans understood what happened in the 60s when Africa became independent, so to say, you would come to realize that there is no head of state or a government in Africa, why do you think that all the crises we have today in Africa, they are all telling the same story? It cannot be a coincidence. It simply tells you that there is a hand behind Africa making sure that Africa should not emerge. Ethiopia, you can use the analysis of Ethiopia to explain what is happening in Sudan. You can use the situation in Sudan to analyze what is happening in Nigeria. It has only been the same story. Is it a coincidence? Is it an accident? The answer is no. This is what I call crisis development.
Okay, crisis development. Emmanuel, is democracy a fundamental problem to Africans? Have we yet not come to that level, or yes, that level of understanding how to manage our societies using democracy or democratic practices?
Before I come to your question, Mr. Leo, you need to, there's something every honest African must agree with me this now. Our economic, political, and social life is in the hands of the Western world. And because our economic, political, and social life is in the hands of the Western world, they are using us as toys in their hands. When your economic life is completely seized, like Mr. Ebako was saying a while ago, how disgraceful will it be for an African president to go to France? And then I ever heard that someone then came back complaining that the amount that was given to them was less than what they had anticipated before leaving Africa to go for that summit. What a shame. Now we need to know, coming back to your point of democracy, I've just answered it shortly, that our economic, political, and social life are in the hands of the West. Let me take the example of Chad. You saw what recently happened in Chad. Baby was killed. And the person who came in to install the child, the son, to sit in for the father was France, not in hiding. And the way ahead, promising help to whosoever. That is why sometimes when you look at the history of Africa, you give some credibility to some terrorist groups, because some of these terrorist groups are emerging out of frustration and out of a lot of patriotism, because most African leaders are not patriots. I have always quoted the case of Cameroon. Now most Cameroonian ministers cannot sing the national anthem. That is why their moral values are so low, because they cannot take the release of their national hymn. That's one. Now still talking about democracy, most elections in Africa, you saw what happened in Congo with Teke and the other person. If you can be a yes we to the Western world, you can stay in power for as long as you like. It is the day that you fall out with them, or you start taking your country towards a certain degree of financial, economic, and political autonomy, that they will fling you through the back door. Now, talking about this topic I'm saying, why has silencing the guns campaign not worked in Africa? Mr. Leo, it is still far from working in Africa. You know, gun business has become a very lucrative business in Africa. The killing business in Africa is so much, is like in basic economics, when they talk about the theory of production and production cost recovery. When you are producing guns, you are not producing them to put them in stock. You are producing to sell. And Africa happened to be that continent where that is acting as the testing ground for the Western guns. So, with the license given to the green light given to the Western world by our Africans, who have never for once thought of uniting, I think Africa has a long way to go. Thanks to you for such topic, because this topic even took me some time to reflect. And I will tell you that some African heads of state this evening do not know that they are supposed to be celebrating or mourning African Day tomorrow without fear of being contradicted. There are some of them who are on the way who do not even receive their own citizens. They don't receive their own ministers. They receive only foreign diplomats. Every day they are forgetting that they have to be accountable to their population, but they are accountable to the Western world. Just look at the case of Cameroon. We have a failed Grand National Dialogue in Yaoundé. Instead of our president to render account to Cameroonians, he sees that Yaoundé, Douala, Yaoundé, Bamenda, Yaoundé, Kumba is lower than Yaoundé, France, to go and render an account to Mr. Macron. That is a shame. Our African leaders are failure, and I think in this domain, before I give back the microphone to you, there's something I want to differ a bit with Mr. Ebako. Being a Pan-Africanist does not mean that we want Africa to cut off from other continents and live as an island. We can as well live like other continents, but having power, having a grip over our economic, political, and social life.
Okay. Mr. Teke, somewhere, seemingly there is that lack of solidarity to wanting to silence the guns definitely in Africa. We saw the way Gaddafi was taken out up north. We have seen how most African heads of state are attacked by rebel. We've seen coup d'etats, but seemingly nobody wants to step into the shoe of the other, and solidarity is missing somewhere.
Yes, this is possible because the engineers of all of this are hidden somewhere and we can't find them. So the same people who are victims are the same people who started the whole thing. And like I was telling someone I was coming, I said it becomes difficult to silence guns because the guns are being given by the same people who stand in public and say, hey, we don't want guns, but they have given these guns behind. And now they come to police, say, we don't want guns. And the people that are holding the guns are like, okay, but you give us the guns. And so, okay, come take it, let's see. And they cannot openly take the guns because they know where the gun is coming from. See, you can never tell a hungry man to be quiet, especially when they have a means to cry, when they have a means to shout. So if Africans can decide, African countries can try to come back and see themselves as one and promote unity and promote solidarity, everyone holding a gun can drop it. You can never use force to take guns from somebody. You can't. Force will never work. There are methods in which they do this thing. For example, when Yar'Adua became president in Nigeria, that was when the Niger Delta crisis was very heavy. Okay, Yar'Adua would have just carried the Nigerian army, send them down to Bayelsa, send them to Port Harcourt, and bomb down everybody. But unfortunately, they couldn't do that. He was wise enough. He brought in Jonathan as his vice. Jonathan was from the Niger Delta. And then they tried to go on a peace talk, got what they call amnesty. Went down there, talked to the guys, gave them an alternative means of living. Because through the guns, they were able to live on bunkering and all of that. They gave them alternative means, send some abroad, train them, and then these people willingly dropped their weapons. And it was a gradual process. They didn't tell them, today as we are talking to you, drop your weapons and leave the bushes and come to town. They didn't do that. They kept talking to them, kept having meetings. Yar'Adua, Jonathan went down to the people, talked with them, and these guys were dropping their weapons gradually. They were creating jobs for them, sending some to school, sending them abroad, and that was how the Niger Delta crisis was gradually wiping out, gradually. It never took a sharp turn, but it took time. So if you want to silence a gun, it's not something you stay on one of your position and then just shout that everybody must do it. They have guns and they have powers. So we must understand the place of conversation, the place of unity, the place of solidarity if we have to achieve this. If not, force will never, instead, it will aggravate the whole thing.
Okay, force will never. Let me take two messages. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Please, I will suggest a minute of silence for our fallen forefathers concerning Africa unity. Thanks. Ray Bisson is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and the panelists. Therein, the anarchy which has befallen Africa state is due to their egoistic tendencies and their cling to the West, especially those countries that were colonized by France. A glaring example is Cameroon and the Anglophone crisis. By Hilary Uti Wan Shambi, writing from Banja subdivision. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the panelists. Please, Mr. Liu, tell the technicians to adjust his system. The sound doesn't match with action. Okay, there is an issue with the synchronization. Greetings, Mr. Liu, and to all the intellectuals on the panel. I really do love the Prime Hour, for it makes me learn a lot. Nadine Adija writing, there is this notion of sovereignty. African nations say they are sovereignty, but this whole notion is not too clear, because today we are sovereign from this perspective, and tomorrow we are not too sovereign. Is that where there is a nuance also, not being able as a continent to take a firm decision to take one action to a definite end?
Well, you see, one of the first thing they did was to divide Africa and keep them separately, instead of giving a face of one Africa. And then we have to understand of some of the colonial structures which were laid in place when the colonialists left Africa. And some of these structures are democracy. You have democracy, you also have the issue of currency and the issue of many existing treaties that, how will I put it, that restrain the Africans from exploiting their own natural resources and processing their own natural resources. So some of these structures which were put in place are still working against the unity of Africa. And if we are going to emerge, there are some of these things that we need to deal with from the beginning. Because if you talk about sovereignty, it is quite obvious that even at the level of the United Nations, we do not have sovereignty. Coming right down to our individual countries, we do not have sovereignty. What we have here is what I call freedom. Freedom simply means you have the right to do anything, but the only thing that you are not permitted to do is to decide your own destiny. So it is just like a man who has probation, and they give you certain restrictions that you are not supposed to cross here, you are not supposed to cross here, but you can do any other thing within this confinement. And that is one of the reasons why you realize that a country like Rwanda, we hail Rwanda today for have entered into an area of a middle income class, but the question here is Rwanda still is not fully how will I put it, exploiting its full potential, and Rwanda cannot extend its development to other African countries. It is very challenging to understand how Somalia can be in this condition for how many decades. Sudan, one nation in the West, sanctioned Sudan for 30 years. Sudan had been in that condition. We have Rwanda. We have many other African countries that are seeming to be doing well, and nobody could go in for the assistance. This is just to tell you that each African country has been tied separately by a united front. It is almost today that Africans need to understand that when we talk about France, we are not talking about either Macron, we are talking about France as EU, and we are talking again about France as the United Nations, because these are veto members. We have seen clearly that if we do not learn to live together by living apart, Mr. Liu, we are not going to succeed, because you realize that in those days when they were giving this independence, the independence were being negotiated. There was no African country except Ethiopia that was not being colonized. But later on, today we are seeing that Ethiopia even now is taking the lead of Western civilization until Chinese company will come and build a headquarters in Ethiopia. You realize that most of their independence were being negotiated. That simply means that there was an existing arrangements in the prior beginning that many of our head of state were not being democratically elected by their people to reflect the spirit of their people. The examples are too much, whereby in Africa you find that presidential seats are almost becoming a lifetime appointment, which that does not happen in the West, because they had already successfully built a how will I put it, a legacy, a system which can run for generations to come. So there they can apply democracy, because it's just like organizing a friendly match. A team is organizing a friendly match. So who wins or who did not win does not matter. The both teams are protecting the interests, their national interest and their foreign interest. But in Africa, what have we achieved? We have not achieved anything for us to apply democracy. That is why I said that the bringing of democracy to Africa is an abuse on its own, because you only bring in democracy in a system that has been purely developed. It's just like comparing Dangote and a civil servant. A civil servant needs to make efforts to make ends meet, and his family depends on him. But Dangote, his empire runs because he has been able to build a system, and that's how democracy comes into place. People have been able to build systems. So African nations are not yet gain their sovereignty, and this is what we must fight for, because they had taken hostage in the beginning by our currency. Many of the countries like Nigeria that uses naira, but naira is pegged to a particular currency. That is what they call dollarization. It is pegged to a particular currency. They are talking about CFA. It is pegged to euro. So at the end of the day, we don't own an economy. So until Africans understand, and the population of these youths in Africa understand, that this is where Africa has been trapped at the level of the United Nations. Mr. Leo, in families, elections do not take place. In churches, elections do not take place. In the United Nations, elections do not take place. They have made us to understand that power is hereditary. It is not rotational. That is why I don't believe in democracy that they brought to Africa, because they don't do democracy at the level of the United Nations. Those 5 veto members are permanent seats in the United Nations. And how can these same people who preach democracy, who do not believe in what they say, who do not believe in what they say, they do not believe that in their own hearts, they tell us to practice democracy? How is it logical that Asia does not practice democracy, but Asia is advancing? Africa for 60 years is talking about democracy brought in by the colonialists, and we are still at the same spot. All developments that we have been getting from the World Bank, as they call that, they have been giving us loans, aids to develop Africa, to emerge out of its underdevelopment and all of that. All of those things are only brought in crisis, corruption, because they understand that when you in the beginning put in the government that is going to serve your interest, that's what I call the 15% against the 85%. They use the government to exploit its population. The 85% here stands as the population of that country. How is it possible that Macron will leave France, come to Chad, reinstate the son of Idriss Déby, when there was an existing constitution which was made for the Chadians and not for the son of Idriss Déby, neither for Macron? Is that democracy? That's an abuse of democracy, and that is dictation. Now, these are the individuals that we will leave Africa and go to a summit in France for Macron to school us on how we should run our nation. Okay. This is an alarming situation that Africa needs to come together. Our only solution and key to succeed is our unity. Out of that, anything that is going to set us apart must be set apart, no matter what. Our unity now is the principal religion that matters right now, than any other religion. Okay, I read writing from Kumba says, we have rarely seen a white holding the guns to fight with rebels in Africa. This implies that to be able to instigate Africans to fight themselves, the West takes advantage of the poverty in Africa. In this way, they use the poor and deceive them to take guns and fight for their rights. Now, the main problem is that Africans spend all the time fighting for political power and rights instead of economic power, wealth creation. If Africans are thought to create wealth, mainly community wealth, it will be difficult for Westerners to manipulate people like Mr. Teke somewhere, because he is busy creating wealth and can't risk his life to be manipulated, while the West are busy creating economic blocks like the Commonwealth. We are busy creating political parties to amass personal wealth for ourselves. If Mr. Teke can help us teach Africans to come together in small groups, contribute and invest in common fronts, if Africa will be better. Africans are busy creating personal wealth, and the gap between the rich and the poor keeps widening. The poor will always be manipulated to take up guns. What do Africans need more? Community wealth or personal wealth? Economic freedom or political freedom? Please, can you discuss this topic in a program involving Mr. Teke? Okay, Mr. Teke is already here. Because is that not where the problem is? Seemingly, Africans don't know who their enemy is. We in the DRC, we find all of those fighting Africans. Take the case of the southwest and northwest regions. Those who are killing are Cameroonians, and in Chad, Chadians are killing Chadians. Is that not also the problem, where Africans don't know that their enemies is so? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Alio, I think that's very right. because at one point, I go back to revisit history when the white man used to call us apes, black monkeys. I think the white man, if we were to find out from them why that name came out, they will certainly have a reason to tell us. At times, please, our dear viewers, permit me to say that at times, I think us Africans, including me, have become so stupid to the level that we value the illusions of the white man than the realities of the African on the ground. If not, what will explain the fact that the white man produces guns? He is not testing them in his zone. He calls you, he sends you with the guns. You test them by killing your own people. You see, in Europe, their police force, the uniform officers are trained to handle the gun under the law. But the white man will teach you in Africa that, look, these forces should be trained in Africa to handle the guns above the law, so that they can shoot and kill only within themselves, like the issues that you just raised a while ago, Southwest, Chad, Somalia, all in Africa. But in all this, I think I squarely point my accusation to African leaders, and I explain why. You know, it is difficult to silence guns in Africa because undemocratically elected African heads of states are using these guns to pin their buttocks on their seats for as long as they can do. Remember that only, as we are talking, only few African heads of state can walk down the streets of their countries without bodyguards in their around them. Just come to Cameroon, go to Boya. The armored cars in Boya are more than the yellow taxis that are supposed to transport citizens in the morning to and from their job sites. Are we fabricating armored cars in Cameroon? No. Where are we getting them? We are obtaining them from the West. But we discovered that in the West, to see an armored car is very rare. They are parked and they come out only when need arises. And the need almost always arises when it concerns an African country. But African leaders who love power and who have chosen not to look at the development of their people have remained very glued and so loyal to these Western corrupt people who call themselves Democrats. Like Mr. Ebako was saying a while ago, the veto powers cease from creation. Nobody has ever replaced them. So as we are talking at the same time, I think we should be proposing the way out for Africa. Mm-hmm. I think there is a major problem in Africa. Development in Africa can silence gun. Mm-hmm. Because when there is development, the citizens are at peace. And we also need to know that sustainable institutions in Africa can silence gun. It is time for Africans to make their institutions stronger than the people. Because what we have more in Africa today, we have stronger people than institutions. But there's another one I will also cite. At one point, when it is not going, I think Africa should go into structural violence and take it by force. It also contributes, because if somebody holds your hand and you are struggling to take it back peacefully and the person keeps holding it, take it by force. I think Africa needs to go through these three aspects.
Okay, Africa needs to go through these three aspects. Mr. Teke, are we not also failing in silencing the guns because Africans feel that the solutions to their problems can only come from the West? We blame almost everything on the West. And instead of solving our problems, thinking that we have that capacity to end this crisis, we think only the West needs to come in and do something. For example, the crisis in the Central African Republic, we saw France coming. Mm-hmm. We saw the same scenario in in Mali, where France also came in, is it not because Africans believe that the West has a solution to their problems?
Well, Mr. You're even going to Central Africa, you're going to Mali, all of that. Let's come back to Cameroon. When they start talking about the Anglophone crisis, and those in the diaspora will tell you they don't want to come to Cameroon, they should meet in Switzerland to go set the crisis there. Now, until we realize that we are not our enemies, we are our brothers' keepers, we will not be able to solve our own problems. Because if you look at all the shooting and the killings, it has nothing to do with the white man. He has not died. It doesn't affect their economy, but it's affected the Cameroonian economy, it has affected the African economy. So we have to realize that if the Africa is at war, if there is gun in Africa, it is affecting Africans, not the Western world. So let's stop shifting blames to them, whether they did what or they didn't do anything. Let's figure out how do we solve our problems ourselves. So let's come back and start talking to our conscience. As Africans, what have we done to ourselves that we are getting ourselves to this level? Separating Africa and all of that, dividing them, giving them different countries in the same continent, is something that has been done. This is what I like saying. See, the problem we have didn't come by gun. It came by pen. For example, the Fumban conference didn't come by gun. People sat somewhere to sign some documents. You cannot solve a pen problem with a gun. It won't work. So let's come back and start figuring out something. Where have we gone wrong? What do we have to fix? And we only do that by first loving one another and understanding that if I kill you, I have killed myself. Until we start getting to that point where we see each other as one, it becomes almost impossible to silence the guns. Almost impossible. If our leader, if our president says that the citizens are my people, and the people says that the president is our president, it becomes impossible for us to fight each other. But as long as we think that, okay, imagine when people are fighting and then people go to the White House, stay in the White House and start shouting, Donald Trump, come and help us, Donald Trump, come and help us. The guy, it has nothing to do with Cameroon. It's not none of his business. So what are we supposed to do? This is our battle. This is our fight. It is our error. We have to fix it. So how do we fix it? Let's go back to the root. Where did it all start from? Can we fix anything? Those that started it, are they still alive? If they are alive, let's call them to question. What did you do? If they are not alive, is there anything we can do? My question to everyone is, all the problems we are facing in Africa, in Cameroon that you and I are staying in, can this problem be solved? Is there a solution to it? If yes, must it come from abroad? Must it come from the Western world? If the answer is no, what are we supposed to do? Like someone rightly said, start the problem solving it from you. Because you cannot be, they say the eyes that sees far does not see itself. So now begin from yourself. What problems am I supposed to solve for myself? Do I have hatred, bitterness, and this envy within my own circle and my community? If you are given a responsibility to manage a business as an individual, that's where it starts from. Can you manage a business successfully and take care of the people in your community? If you are a youth president in your community, how do you run your community? If you are a youth president or you are the chief in your village, how do you run the village? That's where leadership begins from. Because it is from there that we can now say, okay, this man has run our village correctly, let's make him a parliamentarian. If everybody starts leadership from the little angle where they are, they will take it to the larger angle and we will create the change. Okay. But you are a youth leader, you are a chief, you are a terrorist in your own community, and you are blaming someone who is keeping a higher position. It doesn't work. Leadership begins from grassroots. From the family. From the family. The community. As a husband, you terrorize your wife, terrorize your children, and you talk about leadership, then you've not started. Let's start from the grassroots and start growing gradually and see where we can fix it. Because every leader you see today that we blame, they are what they are from where they are from to where they are coming from. It all begins from there. Power only unveils the true nature of people. That's what I say. The African leaders we see today, they did not become terrorists because they are leaders. They were
terrorist by nature. The average African was a terrorist by nature. And so we have to fix it from our grassroots. This is how I used to put it. If you kill a cockroach, you will not see blood. Because by nature, cockroaches don't have blood. If you kill a rat, you will see blood. By nature, cockroaches have blood. The rats have blood. So you only know the true nature of a person if you put pressure on them. So when we come up and then we talk and then we blame people, we blame leaders. The question is, if you are given a responsibility to manage anything or manage anybody, what will you do?
Can you do it without the use of a gun? AU will only start making sense when leadership administratively is given to Panafricanists, and no head of state should be a member of any sector of AU. The foolishness of our leaders has reached its peak. We need to take the bull by the horn and send France out. Article Felix and Zip is writing from Boya. I don't know why I always blame France. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I think silencing the guns campaign has not worked in Africa because most of our policies are drafted and controlled by someone else. Entrepreneur Oben is writing from Douala. Good evening, Liu, and to all the panelists. Silencing the guns in Africa will be difficult for those at the top to eradicate war and making money out of it, as the case of the Anglophone crisis. Again, the white wants us to kill ourselves so that they will take away our resources. In addition, they doing business by selling weapons. Daisy, good evening to you from K-Town. Good evening to all in the studio. Silencing the gun in Africa is not working for a simple reason. Arms dealers and the whites in general are happy when Africans remain divided, for it will play in the advantage. Don't forget, while we are interested in killing ourselves, the Westerners continue to explore our resources. Derek Waller is writing from Chang. Mr. Liu, good evening. We should stop blaming the whites solely. Africans were brainwashed from the beginning, and now we use and depend on Western technology, Western religion, Western social life, Western fashion, etc. Our women buy hair from the dead. Whites in hundreds of francs. We hate our color and bleach ourselves. Our leaders are puppets in the hands of the whites until we break out of poverty and the belief in our custom and get new mindsets. We will not stand up. The West fights and is afraid. New Africa afraid. Okay, I don't know what you mean. Kingsley Ngwa is writing from Boya. Good evening to you. Apostle Ambe, Valentine Ngwa, our consultant, who is in the studio with us. Did you follow what Kingsley is saying, that we should not blame the West all the time? We are our problem.
Yes, it's often said that show me a man that will fail is a man that puts his blames on others. Always, that's a sign of a complete failure. Why we do not blame the West completely? They have their own part of the cake. They have their own part of the challenge we are facing. How do you explain that we live in Africa, yet we constantly have foreign forces coming to stop challenges in Africa? It means Africa has not grown enough to protect itself. It's often said that the three accesses to a man that can kill a rich man is either through his gate man, through his house help, or his cook. It means if you don't have a trustworthy gate man, your gate is as good as open. It will shock you that Africans depend on outsiders for security. How do you explain that in the G5 Sahel area that consists of Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Mauritania, they have a G5 police that is supervised by France? How can a stranger be the gate man of your house? A gate man you cannot trust. There is something called Africa High Command in Africa. It's American forces that are here to protect Africans. Their business is to raise or train Africans in countries that are part of the AU and part of the United Nations in order to give security in Africa. Africa High Command is in 54 nations in Africa except Egypt. The only country where Africa High Command is not found is the country that has the highest military might. Egypt is not part of Africa Command, yet Egypt has the strongest military. How do you explain? It's a paradox. The 54 countries that are part of Africa Command, in Central African Republic right now, there is problem.
2 coup d'etats have taken place in Mali this year. Recently, another coup d'etat took place. The president that was appointed yesterday has been hijacked by the military. Where is AFRICOM? As I talk to you, in the Horn of Africa, they have the US Joint Task Force in the Horn of Africa. That force is there, yet Tigray is having a challenge with Eritrea and Ethiopia. That's another challenge. That particular US Joint Force had been there when Eritrea and Ethiopia fought civil war for 20 years and almost 100,000 people were killed. You go to Congo Democratic, AFRICOM is there, yet you have the Kivu rebels who are constantly fighting again with the Hutu, and the Hutu rebels who are fighting against the poor of Kivu to take away what? To take away cobalt, to take away gold, to take away silver. Let us give analysis on in the general continent Africa. We were in Russia in 2019 at the Sochi Afro-Russia Congress. Museveni said that we need to buy more guns to kill Africa, because Russia will not sell you a gun that does not have the antidote. America has its presence in 54 countries. US Marine, US military, US naval, they are all in Africa in 54 countries. Yet we have constant pirates at the sea coast of Somalia. What are they doing there? So let us consider the fact that Africa does not have a security on its own. It's dependent on external security. France is in Africa. It has military base in African countries. America is in Africa. It has military in African countries. And then now you shocked that they went to the France Afrique Summit recently, and Buhari is asking France to come and help them kick out Boko Haram. I was asking that France does not have a population up to 70 million. Nigeria has 180 million. Then a country that has 70 million that has 180 million is begging the man that has 70 million to come and protect him. That's improper faction. That's a clear fact. Is to tell you that we don't have a security of our own. So if we want to talk about security in Africa, Africa completely depends out of the country. When Omar el-Bashir was tormenting the Sudanese, there were 5,600 blue helmets. Blue helmet is United Nations forces in Africa. When they were about to reduce 1,000 of those 5,600 helmets, it was the AU that said the peace in the entire West is volatile, that they should not touch them. That means AU is counting on UN forces to protect. See, we are in Cameroon 4 years running. We have UN cars in this country every day running the north and the southwest. All their own is we condemn. But when Catalonia attempted to separate from Spain, immediately the Catalonian parliamentarians decamped from the Spanish parliament. The next day, UN forces were there. You could see whites insulting people and nobody laid hands on them. But yeah, the story is different. That is to tell you that we have kept the wrong gate man at our gate. Africa should never allow EU forces, United Nations forces, or African Command to be the ones to guard the gate.
But you are raising something. We are talking about silencing the guns. It says that the gatesmen at our doors in Africa are strangers. Is it the fact that we lack resources? Do we lack the know-how? Are we not rich enough to be able to guard our doors and be able to effectively protect ourselves?
Well, Mr. Liu, the answer to that question is what the Americans did to achieve their sovereignty is nothing secret. What the Chinese are doing to keep their sovereignty is nothing secret. What the Europeans did to obtain their sovereignty is nothing secret. The answer to all of that is simple. They came together. They built unity. They came as one people in order to overcome their differences so that they can exploit their foreign interests. This is what Africa is lacking. Africa is lacking unity, solidarity. That is the core of the problem in Africa. And these are the things that divided us way back in the 60s. How many African countries came together to fight for its independence? We saw in 1957, the UPC stood up here in Cameroon to fight for the sovereignty of this country. France, with the troops at that period, eliminated Ngwa and 80,000 Cameroonians. What am I simply trying to say? The aspect of division makes it in such a way that a war can be taking place in Sudan. Uganda sits quiet. A war can be taking place in Nigeria. Cameroon sits quiet. It was in the border of Cameroon and Nigeria that Charles Taylor was arrested. Of recent, the former president of Sudan is indicted in The Hague to come and face how do I call it, war crime charges against humanity. You come to look at all of this things, you come to realize that they are handling the member states of Africa individually, whereby this man cannot comment on what this other man.
But you say they are. Who is?
No,
who is they are? My question is, why are we not taking responsibility?
I am coming, and the way forward is very simple, Mr. Liu, but we are just trying to put out a very clear picture here.
My question. Let me cue you. Seemingly, we know that Africa has oil, Africa has gold, Africa has diamond, Africa has rubber. We have almost everything. What stops us from building that force that can keep the gates of our continent? That is my question.
Mr. Liu, we have to.
The average African man is more concerned about their individual interests than the people's interests.
Okay.
So the primary responsibility is that these people, we don't think we have exported our trust.
Okay.
So an African president don't believe that his own people can protect him more than a foreign army. That's why they can bring a foreign army. The presidential guard is being trained by Israeli, for example. Why can't we do our own training ourselves and trust our own army? Can they take a Cameroonian army or an African army to go and train the army in the US? It doesn't work. So we don't trust ourselves. So we have to come back to the point of trust. Can we do it ourselves? If we can say yes, then we will destroy all of these things that we are fighting about. Keep saying the white man did, the white man that. They did this 1960, 1940 and all of that. It's gone. Can we take a U-turn now? Where do we go from here? For how long do we have to keep blaming people who have done us wrong? Because whether you like it or not, we are here blaming them. It doesn't concern them. They will still do what they are doing. What are we supposed to do? Do we have the resources? Of course, yes. Why are we still fighting among ourselves? They are igniting the fire because they know that if we are divided, they will keep taking from us. If we come together, we will understand what they are doing. So we understand the problem is lack of unity. So can we unite? Let us come together. Yeah, how do we do it? Do we need a white man to put us together?
No. You have said everything you have said. You still come back to unity, isn't it? You come back to.
But why are we not united?
But that is where the main question is. So it's not about talking of unity.
So let's leave the white man out. And see how we can solve it.
Mr. Leo, look at it this way. Look at it this way. The issue here is that it is not because we lack the will to unite. The will is there. Do you know how many African presidents are willing to do what is right? The will is there. Look, let us not argue about that.
Let's not talk abstract. Let's not talk abstract.
Okay. We are not going after Mr. Leo. We are talking. Cameroon is equal as the same as what is happening in Africa. We have an existing system in place. And this is a system that we need to remove. I don't know if you understand me. If we are ever going to succeed. In all of what we are saying, Mr. Lo, there's none of these systems, none of these armies that we created ourselves.
Let us take. I don't want us to do rocket science here. Let's take the Anglophone crisis. You see, it is the West that is refusing that people should come together to solve the problem. Is that what you are saying?
That is a very good question you are asked, and let me explain this to you very well. If you look from where we have come from to where we are now, this is very important for Cameroonians to understand. You see, the West understands that when you have an existing government like the government of Cameroon that you have been in partnership with for a long period, for all these years that we are talking of, whether you like it or not, we understand that majority of Cameroonians are living under hardship and under poverty. You will expect resistance either from the government or from its population. Now the interest of the West here is for no African. They are going to do whatever they have to do to survive in Africa. So that simply means that if he sees that whether you have served him for long and he gets fed up of you, he starts going into the population and start instigating them, because he knows that the population has been in this condition for a very long period. It's easy. If he gives anybody money, they will kill anybody. Can you agree with me that Cameroonians are at the point today where if they see a means to dupe another Cameroonian, they will do? Cameroonians are in the point today where if they have the opportunity to take money and kill somebody, they will do.
Are you saying when they say war drafts, people should contribute for war draft. The West is giving money to people who are carrying arms today. Is that what you're saying?
That the West is giving money to people who are carrying arms. Mr. Leo, do you want to agree? Do you want to disagree with me that the arms that these people are holding, those arms came from the West?
Okay, they dashed them, man.
No. What I'm saying here is no. Okay. Permit me to say this, Mr. Leo. There is an uprising of the rebels that we assume that killed Idris Deby. Those same rebels were being sponsored by France. Okay. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, we need to.
The weapons that we saw in the hands of the headsmen in Nigeria are weapons that are stronger than one the government has. Yeah, how do you explain that?
But they bought them now. Is that not?
They bought them from who? They came from how? How did they enter? How did they enter Nigeria, or how did they enter Cameroon? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves.
They are doing business.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Leo, I wanted to say that a while ago I told you something about basic economic principles of production. These arms are not produced in Africa. Because the arms that are produced in Africa are local arms. Now, he who is producing these arms needs to make benefit.
It's to sell them.
To sell them. But he who is stupid is the one dying with the guns in his hands. And he's not dying with the guns in his hands, killing the white man. He's killing his fellow brother. He's killing his fellow sister. Now, I told you that the problem of Africa, unity, like he said, I didn't do. But the problem of Africa in general is governance. When you look at the way African countries are being governed, you see that there will hardly be a time when they will come to agreement within themselves. Because one, just look at the case of Chad. The people were no longer at peace with Idris Deby Itno, but he wanted to remain there in power, which was already against
the Chadians or the Europeans?
I mean the Chadians. At that time, he thought that his backing could come again from France as he used to be, but he was wrong because of late he had taken a stance that was against the same France that used to keep him there. So all in all, as we are talking, we need unity and we need good governance, because we cannot unite if there is no good governance. At a time when you are trying to unite, like take the case of Cameroon, many cities, you mentioned something a while ago that there are many people in Cameroon who can pick up guns to fight if there was a possibility. I even watched professors say it, that the injustice meted out on them by their own high-profile party officials gave them only three options: either to take a gun, to resign, or to take it legally, which means that dissatisfaction pushes many people to revolt. So Africans have a problem of governance and unity, and until they come to terms with themselves that they can unite and govern Africa as an entity, not as different countries, not to work out.
Okay, please, can you speak without laying insults on Macron? What is his age and wife got to do with you? What have you done with your 53 years age and a 16-year wife of yours to impact Africa? May you be mature. Please, good evening, Mr. Kum. I like your program. Fofiyin from Yaoundé, good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Leo and entire panelists. Africans' first problem is education. In schools, we learn a lot about the West, and as you know, a man in his brain, it's Leslie from Yaoundé also. I don't know. We say a man is his brain. Good evening, Mr. Leo and Apostle. I always love to follow you people, especially when Apostle is there. May God continue to protect you people, even as we are going through this crisis. You, Laris, writing from Bermuda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. What Africa have is more than enough for Africa, but Africa eats the crumbs. That is our problem. Okay, good evening to you all in the studio. My own contribution is that Africa should forget about the UN, not that they should not completely stay out from the UN. They should concentrate and fight for their own countries. Peter is writing from Yaoundé. Now, Apostle Valentine Ngwa, why has it been difficult for the AU to come up with a force that can deter foreign intervention in Africa? For example, we saw Gaddafi, for President Gaddafi to leave power. It took an international force to take him out of power, and we've seen that in other instances. We've seen France intervene in the case of Chad to protect the former president.
Mr. Lu, I think we have a misconception here with who is an African and who is a black.
Okay. Yeah, that's another way. Yeah.
There are many blacks with European mindset, and there are many whites with African mindset. Africa has not been defined anymore as a matter of color. We've gone beyond the level of color. If you look at what happened during the days of Kwame Nkrumah, Kwame Nkrumah created the Casablanca bloc. There were just 8 of them who wanted an immediate federated Africa, while Leopold Sedar Senghor created the Monrovia bloc. All former French colonies were with Leopold Sedar Senghor. Nkrumah wanted an immediate united Africa, while Leopold Sedar Senghor said we can get it gradually through economic integration after political integration. There was also the Brazzaville bloc, who believed that they were comfortably being provinces of France in Africa. So an African is not him that is dark anymore in color. An African is him that has Africa at heart. There are many Europeans who have dark skin living in Africa because their culture, their philosophy, their mindset. So how do you explain that we accept you with your color, thinking that you are one of us, when your mind shows that you are a stranger amongst us? The division among us is a very hard nut to crack, because we even have spies among us we call our own. The earlier we get this understanding, the better. That an African is not him that is dark in complexion. Yes. Now, during the USSR and USA Cold War, the further divide came again when Felix Houphouët-Boigny also cajoled the other French colony in Africa to support the capitalist mentality, why Nkrumah wanted the communist bloc. So you discover that the divide was so strong. There are many Africans or many dark-skinned people who are practically European. Do you know that for the former French colonies, 14 of them, when de Gaulle wanted to make all those counties in Africa to become extended provinces of France in Africa, it was one African, Ahmed Sékou Touré, who stood in October and refused. And because of that, in 1958, Guinea-Conakry was granted independence. So Ahmed Sékou Touré championed the independence of French African territories. That's why after 2 years they got it. While Nkrumah championed in 1957 the independence of all former British African territories. It's to tell you that the African mentality is no longer a matter of color. The divide is so strong in such a way that even in a Pan-African parliament, we have European spies living inside. Do you know that EU has a seat in AU? Oh yes, the European Union has a seat in the AU in Africa. Why? Why AU has no seat in EU? AU, as a matter of fact, Africa has no seat in the US Security Council. How do you explain that? So when we are talking about unity, we should be able to know the persons who are Pan-Africans, not Africans. That's why the EU must be changed from an African unity to a Pan-African organization. It shouldn't be a gadget.
Does it matter the appellation? Is it not the spirit of the persons that are?
I'm talking about the ideology. Yeah. We're talking about the ideology. If the ideology is a Pan-African, it's an ideology. Somebody who has Africa at heart. Somebody who will not prefer to go and stay in Europe. He will prefer to stay in Africa and develop Africa. Somebody who will believe in Africa building its own security.
Now this issue of division is Africans are unable to sort themselves out because people are afraid to intervene in other areas. Is it not because everybody is afraid of a possibility for others to discover what is in their backyard? Is that not why it is very difficult for African nations to intervene?
It shouldn't be that. Museveni said it clear that Africans betrayed Gaddafi when he needed them most.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying.
Yes, when he needed them most, they betrayed him. Because why? I'm telling you that most of the African presidents are Africans in color, not Africans in mind. When the real guys who were Africans came to power in Africa, they were eliminated. So if you look in Africa, most of the African presidents have studied in the country that colonized them. Check, you will know. From Angola to Cape Verde to Guinea-Bissau to Chad, most of them have studied in France or the country that colonized them. So they have taken a member of their country with a dark skin and sent back as your president. How do you explain that Helen Johnson Sirleaf, an American, heading Liberia? Who is heading Liberia? It's America in a dark skin. Check African country president. Out of 54 African countries, about 40 of them are Europeans. Up here, the Africans in skin. So when a few Africans who have the continent at heart begin to cry for the continent, they are laughing at you. Because why? They are not Africans. They are not.
Okay. The fall of Gaddafi.
Lastly, Mr. Leo, most of the African presidents are ambassadors.
Okay.
An ambassador is somebody who is sent by a country to represent his country. So you can see a black-skinned African president who is representing Portugal in Africa.
Okay.
I've said my own.
Now, the fall of Gaddafi, can we say that it has also contributed to some extent for the inability for African nations to stop the guns from smoking, because he carried a spirit, that spirit that you are talking about.
Of course.
He wanted Africans to come together. His elimination was a big blow to African nations and their unity.
It is a very big blow.
Yeah, because we can understand how destabilized North Africa down to Chad is today.
Of course.
Yeah, but like we see today, Mr. Leo, in Africa, equally like we see today in Liberia, we all are witnessing the instabilities in Libya, and you come to realize that it is when we are in this division that makes the room for foreign exploitations in Africa. And that is why I have been suggesting that one of the ways forward is that change can come from any angle. It is certainly clear that it cannot come from the international community, and it is obviously clear that it cannot come from our leaders. But one of the areas that we are very positive that change can come, like we have seen, we saw in Egypt with Hosni Mubarak. It took the population of that country to oust the president for 3 weeks. We saw in Mali, where the Malians came out in their numbers and they removed the government of Keita. Those are signs to tell every African that we have a great possibility here, because we are talking of about close to 1 billion African youths, and these leaders that we are complaining are just about 7% of the entire population of Africa. We understand that the West uses people of greed minded individuals and then build very repressive governments, give them ammunitions, loans, aid, so that they become very powerful. And that's why you realize that in majority African countries, the governments are always the largest employer, which is an indicator of neo-colonialism. So these are some of the things that we are saying, that Mr. Liu, if after having said all of these things that we are saying about the West, about our leaders, the youth or the population of Africa needs to come to this realization and understand that now a responsibility is upon their shoulder. If their leaders failed to come together, they can still go back to the vision of their founding fathers and use that vision and come together for the sake of Africa and for the sake to rescue their nations and their continent. Else, Mr. Liu, if it is these leaders, I have said it and times without number, there is no election as in the present state of Africa now that can be fair and transparent. The West will always decide who next is going to be our president, because it is very obvious that the population today we have that I'm talking of, these are people who are living very abject poverty, and it's always easy for them to be compromised and to buy their consciences. So, Mr. Liu, the aspect of creating the awareness that Africa is in the state of emergency and people's consciences must be awakened to understand that if the population do not take this stand now, in other words, what am I simply trying to say here is that we are not going to handle this individually. It is not as if Cameroon is going to rise up or Nigeria is going to rise up. It is going to be a continent-wide awareness, awakening that is going to stir up a new era where Africans are protesting the total freedom and independence of their motherland. And this is the area that we need to go to. So when we are talking about solution is going to come in a very radical way. We are not talking of picking up arms. No, we are talking of voicing, sending our voices to the world to know what is happening in Africa and demanding our position. These things are very clear. We understand that we identify ourselves by our DNA, and we understand that
Together, let's celebrate football non-stop for 50 days with the UEFA European League, UEFA Champions League finals. And from the 11th June onwards, you can watch the UEFA Euro 2020 in full live and in HD, commented on by our best experts on the Canal Plus Sports channels. And right now, the HD decoder is only 5,000 francs from the Access formula. Hurry to take advantage of it now.
taking 1 million francs and dividing it to 20 people, it loses its value. We need this population that militates behind this opposition party to come together and understand that it takes our unity and not our division. Opposition parties are only increasing. As the years are going by, it is in the interest of the government to keep adding opposition parties so that it disperses and divides the energy of the youth so that they never find room to come together. They understand, and that is why I said that neocolonialism is sponsored by Africans themselves who have been colonized by whites or by the West to colonize their own people, and that's what we are finding today in Africa. Okay. How do you explain the fact, Mr. Liu, that the government seem to become the largest employer in a country where there's a private sector?
Okay, now how has it been also difficult for the nation? We are talking about the lack of a police now, a guard. Yes, all these weapons, we saw the ammunitions that were displayed by the rebels in Central African Republic, in Chad and in other areas. Why have we also been unable as Africans to control the circulation of these ammunitions?
No, Mr. Leo, I told you from the beginning of this program that this ammunition, why it will be very difficult to silence guns in Africa is because some head of states in Africa are even more criminals than those people holding those guns. And since there are more criminals than those people holding those guns, they are accomplices. They are the ones who tell them that if you pass through this border, it's a weak border, you succeed to come. Remember the case of two weeks ago, somebody was caught in Central Africa with ammunition. Did he fly from air? Was he invisible?
A French citizen.
Yeah, a French citizen. Was he invisible at the time he was entering Central Africa? Did he come like an angel? Did he come like a god? And then you discover that since most African presidents are more criminal than the people holding these guns, it creates a fertile ground for them to communicate. They have their own way of communicating. That is why I maintain that Africa has a serious problem. And another serious problem with Africa is greed. Greed is the one killing African leaders. Because of greed, they prefer to kill millions of their population to remain on seat. Because of greed, and because of greed, they are afraid of their own brothers. They now bring in foreign forces to protect them. Then they are answerable to the Western world and not to their population. I told you time without number, accountability is what African leaders do not want. And because they do not want to face their population in the face, they want to go through the back door. So that, for example, I told you a while ago that the president of Cameroon, the route to France is shorter to him to report things happening in Cameroon to Macron than the route to Bamenda to talk to the Bamenda people, than the route to Boya to talk to the Boya people. When fire is actually ravaging almost 4 regions of his country, he is unable to go there, but it is very easy for him to run to France and then render an account. You see where African policy comes from. But I think it is time for us to look at it from African solutions and stop blaming the white man. The white man has caused a lot of damage to Africa. And thank God, before causing that damage to us, they brought us education. Even if the education is not the type of education that we needed to sit up, it caused us to also reason a bit. Let's start asking ourselves this question. Why are the white people not using these guns, not using their own countries as the testing ground for this government? Why must their guns be tested only in Africa and on the African population? While we keep losing our population, their population is growing. Not only growing in a very active way, and their technology is increasing. Why is it that contracts in Africa, for example, you have dams in Cameroon, they are constructed only by foreign people? Why is it that we have stadiums to be constructed in Cameroon that we only import technology to come in? So it is time African people, not only their leaders, because I am one of the people who think Africa as of now do not have leaders. Okay,
Mr. Teke,
we have to put on our thinking cap.
We are talking about silencing the guns. Is the veritable problem, not rather in developing the nations, because a developed nation would not give people the opportunity or interest to wanting to carry guns. Is that not where the African nations have failed?
Yes, Mr. John, the question is, who are those carrying the guns? They're Africans. So I'm trying hard to see how we can leave these blames and then come back to those carrying the guns. If, let's say, Apostle Ambe is the president of this country, and then something happens and he brings the gun and give it to me, in average citizen, and say, take this gun, go and kill this opposition leader, and I refuse, I'm not taking the gun, that person will not die because he will not carry the gun. So let's stop blaming those up there and then look at those that are carrying the gun. We don't have the integrity enough, even in hunger, to say no to things that are evil or wrong. They promote what they want to promote with their mouth, and they give us money, then they give us gun. We use the gun and kill our own people, then we say our leaders are bad. What have we done to ourselves? That's why I go back to the point of, let's economically develop ourselves. If we economically empower ourselves, as I'm talking, I do my own part, employ 200 Cameroonians. Mr. Leonard employ 200 Cameroonians. He employ 100 Cameroonians. They will not have need for guns. So even when the French bring the gun to Africa and give it to us to go and kill, we already know that we cannot kill our own brothers with their guns. They should use the gun and kill themselves. They will not be able to kill themselves with the gun. And the gun will have no place in our society. So our integrity, our consciousness, human consciousness, let me use the word of Apostle Ambe, our African consciousness is what we need to imbibe. That African culture, we need to bring it back to us. This is Cameroon, it's our country. No matter what whoever says, the American, the French, whatever they say, it is we that will kill ourselves by our own guns. So can we say no to protect our economy? If yes, then let's not handle the guns. It's a decision we have to take. If it's a personal responsibility. So I must not act because Apostle Ambe has failed in his responsibility, and also no, because the president has failed, I'm also going to show him that I will do my own. I will be judged for my own act, and he is going to be judged for his own act. Today, if they say the president did wrong, at the end of the day, did you do well? No. They will come back to me. You that carried the gun, were you supposed to carry the gun? I was not supposed to carry the gun. So let us look at our own part of the bargain. Did we do what was right on our own part before looking at what someone did wrong? That's why I started by saying that
Africa is not going to be fixed by reactionary Africans, but by proactionary Africans. We should be proactive by our approach rather than being reactive. If we are reactive, we'll carry guns, we'll fight, we'll be violent. But if we are proactive, we'll seek for solution, and definitely it will come. One day it will.
Yes, while we blame the West, also Apostle Ambe, Valentine, Ngwa, many Africans are dying in the Mediterranean Sea, trying to seek a way out to Europe. We have the case of a Cameroonian who died moving from...
Yes, a lady trying to cross on the Panama Forest.
Yes, yeah. And we also have the case last week of the Cameroonian who died in Bahrain. These are very difficult times for Africans to show that most of them may be carrying the guns not because they want, but because of the trying conditions. Why? I don't know whether in that the focus at the time the African ministers were meeting to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the African Union, focus was not supposed to be on, let us, instead of talking of the guns, let us develop Africa.
Mr. Lowe, if we want to judge things from a shallow point of view, we're going to give analysis very shallowly.
Okay.
But let's be sincere. Ministers that can eat money for COVID-19 are more dangerous than COVID-19.
Are the guns? Yes, that's it.
We are talking about human conscience here. If we have a disease to the extent where it has to do with health, people are falling down like flies, are dying. That particular money, at least you eat other money. When it comes to this particular money where it's to save the lives of people, if ministers could still go to the extent of eating the money that was supposed to be used to rescue the lives of people from a trending disease, I'm sure those ministers are more dangerous than the COVID-19. So if we keep saying that the minister sat down, we know that once you climb in the place of power in Africa, your conscience is dead. And Africa can only be changed by people who still have their consciences. From ministerial position right up to presidential position, most Africans, their consciences are dead. So if we want to solve African problem, we should not be looking at it from that angle. We should start looking at it from the common man who is suffering, who can even go to the extent of carrying the child on the back to cross the desert. It must be passion, it must be consent, it must be affection. What does this common man do? Example is simple. There is a generation that plants, there's another generation that reaps. The generation that will unite Africa is not this one. This generation is to plant the seed, the sensitization. Pan-Africanism become like a doctrine. The Europeans did not come to Africa and introduce their philosophy to us in one day. They took a gradual process of education, which they educated us until we have become part and parcel of it. To come out is difficult. Let us also go through the process of re-educating Africans. The civil servant mentality is a European philosophy introduced in Africa. They never taught us to be independent. That's the reason why they came and made the local Africa industry. Technology that was great at that time. They turned our goldsmith, they turned our sculpture carvers to interpreters and clerks, giving them a mentality to get civil service jobs rather than creating jobs. South Korea used to be poor. Malaysia used to be poor. Indonesia used to be poor. They did not suddenly start becoming wealthy. There was a generation that began organizing conferences to re-educate the people and give them the education they needed. Do you know that Japan once colonized China? Yes, we were taught in history that the Japanese saw Manchuria as a virgin girl with pointed breasts. They went there, Japan-Manchuria crisis. Now, if we understand now that we have to take this generation we are and plant the seed of Pan-Africanism, because if you are telling there are 1.3 billion Africans, at least we have 600 million Europeans in this 1.3 billion. You will be surprised. As much as we have black skin across this continent, not everyone is black in the mind. Let us start planting that Africanness. Pan-Africanism should become another education. In every family, let's inculcate it in the hearts of children. I watched a movie where a man was sent a child. A woman gave birth to a child and brought to a man. That man took that child, knowing fully well that that child is not his child, what he did was to plant a certain level of hatred in that child's heart against the child's biological father. When the child saw the father, because of the doctrine they gave him from childhood concerning that man, she developed automatic hatred for him. We in Africa, we have not planted Africanness in our generation. Let us take it as a responsibility. We are the planters. Then those who are coming from behind are going to be the reapers of what we are going to plant. Because true leaders don't work for prosperity. P-R-O-S-P-E-R-T-Y. They work for posterity. P-O-S-T-E-R-T-Y. If at all we are sincere and we are selfless, we are not as greedy as these presidents who are now like this, want to eat because they are working. Let us take up the responsibility to build the next generation. Let them come back and manifest the glories of what we have left behind. That's the truth. Okay. The next thing we have to do is that until Africa becomes economically independent, we'll go nowhere. Adesina Akinwumi, President of African Development Bank, he said Africa imports 35 billion product of food every year, dollars. $35 billion. While Africa has the capacity to produce what is importing 3 times. The African Development Bank has given $26 billion.
Yeah, but is that not my question? Why did they not focus on that? That is my question.
That's what I'm talking here. Now they are working on it. Okay. I'm telling you that the seed has been planted. Okay. Another generation is working on it.
They will start implementing 2035.
African Development Bank is giving out $26 billion to the improvement of agriculture. Agriculture is not a means of feeding ourselves. It is an industry in Africa. Just like technology is an industry in Europe and China. Until we accept this reality, we are joking. I have said that every country has its strength. Cameroon should never compare market in oil. We don't have any oil here. We should depend on what is our strength. Our strength is the soil.
Okay, let me take a few messages. The West should not bear a major blame. Africans are responsible for the failure. The day we will recognize that we are the ones we have been waiting for, we will move mountains. Before we go to our leaders, we should look to ourselves. Perhaps Jeff Kennedy was not wrong when he said, ask not what our country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. When we see individual identity as paramount and the need for the individual to improve his or herself, we will achieve greatness that will be measured with none other. Leadership in Africa too is a problem, but a problem caused by lack of self-identity. Before we show the way forward and make sure that governance is given to the people and political representatives are accountable, we need to be ready to take the bull by the horns and bring the fruits for the benefit of the population and not giving power again to a selected few. Most times when I listen, I think we are not ready for freedom. Okay, thank you for that contribution. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's true that Africa needs a unity for its development, but let us face reality. The West monitors and supervises everything about us. Any development attempts that will stop the export of cheap resources to the West will be confronted by a Western-sponsored coup. For example, today France is condemning what is happening in Mali with a sanction threat, but is almost silent when it comes to Cameroons because they are comfortable when we are divided. It is for the advantage. Merrick is writing from Boya. African leaders are a disgrace to humanity and their individual countries as well. I'm not sure all of them. Hello, Mr. Liu. A nice program going on, but sound comes first before images. This is Kang Vivian writing from Bamenda, saying crew problem. Good evening to you all. I think we learn a lot from all your programs, Mr. Liu, but we just need to put them into practice. That's if only our so-called leaders are also following this program. For sure, they will learn a lot from it. Tata, writing from Douala. Apostle Ambe, you are a historical library. I wish you had the commission to rewrite the history of Cameroon for a better understanding to those intellectuals drafts in the country who pride themselves as professors. Onkonji is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Liu, and to all the panelists in the studio. It will be difficult to silence guns in Africa because Africa is rich in natural resources and the West are interested in these resources. The West is the one controlling politics in Africa. They will always support or sponsor African leaders that will implement their policies. Albert is writing from Bamenda. To Apostle, who should be blamed for the AU not having a seat in the EU. Africans equate themselves to a nation in Europe. France Afrique does not qualify enough to be upgraded to the same height with the whole European bloc. Derek Walla is also writing from Chang. Good evening. Good evening to all the panelists. The arm issue is not even an African problem only. We don't manufacture guns in Africa. Stop gun manufacturing everywhere, not only in Africa. Will guns be silent, but the entire globe will witness peace. Melchizedek Jackson writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to everyone at the studio, and a special greetings to you, Mr. Liu. How can we be talking about silencing guns when the African leaders themselves are not taking full responsibility of it? By creating strong governments. Okay, Ebubedike writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm enjoying the program. Mr. Teke is right. There is too much disunity and hatred in African European Union is in Africa because African Union is absent. Papa Oyuyu is writing from Douala. Mr. Leo, I love this program. My favorite program. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and everyone in the studio. The silencing gun campaign will not work because firstly, Africa is a huge market for arms business for the whites. Secondly, white needs control over Africa resources. Thirdly, most of our current African leaders are middlemen doing profitable dealings with themselves. Mr. Nyomi Bless is writing from Boya. Greetings, Mr. Liu, and to the panelists. I will differ with Mr. Teke a little on the point of starting from the grassroots to be able to stand. So it is not at all times we all still being colonized by colonial masters. Kingsley is writing from Marwa. Oops. Now let's talk about the way out. What should be done henceforth to silence the gun? Definitely, is it possible?
Mr. Liu, it's very possible. We understand that our major problems we are facing in Africa is system, governance, and policies which do not reflect the people of their own nation. And we understand that we are over 60 years today of from so-called independence from the 60s. Now you come to realize that the population of Africa has been for over 60 years, that has gone in over 3 different decades of abject poverty, where parents have transferred poverty from one generation to another generation, whereby where we stand today, it is very difficult for the silencing of the guns in Africa, because the opportunity and the need for more arms to circulate in Africa is higher than ever before, because we have had very repressive governments that have that has failed their people. Bad leadership has caused a lot of insecurities today in Africa, whereby it is easy to take any African, give him weapon, he would. We saw how weapons went into the hands of the boys in the Northwest and Southwest. Those were disgruntled men and women who got fed up with the system and decided to. Have you seen where a woman decides to do prostitution? She does not want to do prostitution, but because of the condition she is placed in, she decides to do prostitution. So there are certain conditions when you leave people in for a very long period, they will become as violent as you can imagine. So this goes back to leadership, and this is a way forward here. The way forward here, we saw, for example, when we witnessed the crisis in Nigeria about the SARS, it took the Nigerians themselves to go out and pressurize the government to change a policy which was not in favor of his people. That simply means that it is a possibility here that the population of Africa, in the midst of all this insecurity, could do something about the situation. Because if we're expecting this to come from our leaders, it is impossible, because where the leaders are, as a matter of fact, if they decide today to hold a private meeting somewhere I'm sure by the next week, the next month, in 2 months, you start hearing this one is dead, this one is dead. So everybody is quiet on his own angle. So this is where patriotism now comes into place. Africans of goodwill needs to get involved and understand that it's going to take our unity and practical unity. That is to say that how you start relating with one another and how you start connecting with one another and understanding that your unity is going to be your strength. So we are talking here of practicality and getting Africans to be aware of how Africans can emerge. Because, Mr. Liu, if these steps do not follow, trust you me, we are entering into more severe crisis, whether in 2100 the silencing of the guns will never cease in Africa. So we need practical measures. Thank you.
Leo, the arms industry in the West, especially America, has to survive by igniting wars. Compare the arms lobby group to coffin vendors who pray for people to die. That is D4. Feeding and writing from Bonaberi. Mr. Kum, can I please have Apostle Ambe's number? On Kumji is writing from Bamela. Can you just remind me after the program on Kunji? Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to other panelists in the studio. It is not only going to be difficult, but a hard nut to crack to silence the guns. Haha, I laugh. White man will never, I mean never, in as much as he wants to sell his guns. Let's forget about that. Nke Ferdinand Langai writing from Bomenda. Andy writing from Cyprus says, Mr. Leo, good evening. Our problem in Africa is that we are selfish, wicked. We eat all our harvest and forget the next planting season. Andy, yes, what should be the way forward? He's talking about practical steps. What should be those practical steps?
Well, I think at this point, Mr. Leo, Africans need to look for the fastest way possible to come together, and if possible, they take up structural violence. It works. I think at times, if you overextend a hand to someone and you discover that that's the only enemy that will be making you to remain on the same spot, you have to use the last energy in you. So I think Africa, even though, like Pastor Ambe said a while ago, we have spies only within us. And those are the spies that if they need to have a meeting in Abuja tomorrow for African head of states to decide what the whole Africa should do as an entity. Before they leave that conference, there will be calls in France, USA, Canada, so that the president should be killed. So I think, forget about the African presidents, whom in the first place are not even representing the interests of the Africans. Africans should rise as one man. If possible, let African youth population come out with African youth association that can champion the cause, and then we revisit the ideas of the founding fathers of African independence. You know, and one thing again before I give you the microphone, Mr. Lowe, you know, patriotism is not just talking and talking. Knowing the history of where you come from is part of patriotism. If you cannot know the history of your country or of your continent, and you are talking about patriotism, then you are a liar.
Okay, then you are a liar. Okay, good evening to all. I love the program. Jonathan is writing from Yaoundé. Jonathan, it's Apostle Ambe's number also. Now, what should be the practical steps for African nations? Are we going to set another agenda instead of talking of silencing the guns? We talk of how to get, is it Feed Africa by 2035?
2063.
Food sufficiency or job? Yes, something like that. Should that not be the focus?
The simple thing is, let's keep talking about this. This is our focus, silencing the guns. We have to keep teaching it, keep planting the seeds until the Messiah who is supposed to actually execute this plan will showcase. But until we do this, if we keep quiet, decide okay, it's impossible, the white man has taken over, our leaders cannot do it, we can't. We have to keep talking about it. There's a generation coming behind us, and they have to know that there are some people channeling a particular cause. There's a place, there's a pace we have to set
for them to follow. So let's keep talking about it, keep doing what we can do as individuals and as collective body. With time, we are definitely going to get into that place. We cannot stop it. The way forward is keep talking about it and keep doing your own part as an individual. If they give you gun, will you carry it? No. Will your children, after you see you as a patriotic African or as an African, both mentally and physically? If yes, they will grow with that mentality, and their children will come with that mentality, and the generation that is supposed to take this lead will definitely showcase one day. When Jesus came, he didn't just come. Someone came before him. John the Baptist set the pace for Jesus to come and save. So let us be the John the Baptist, so that the next generation can actually have the position we are fighting for.
Okay, can we end the program with this video from I'm sure the president of Malawi, who is saying that he was going to send some people to jail for stealing the COVID money? Can we have that video?
I can assure you, every one of you, that there is no place on earth where these criminals will hide. The outrage and anguish you all feel from reading this audit report is not only righteous, but also one that I personally feel. And now that the evidence related to the 6.2 billion is before us, I'm taking action. As I speak, over a dozen individuals suspected of committing the crimes exposed by this audit report have just been arrested by the Malawi Police Service. So I want all of the thieves hiding in the civil service to mark my words. If the finger of evidence points to you as one of the thieves that stole COVID money for saving lives while hundreds of our people were dying of COVID, you are going to prison. On top of that, we will use the relevant laws to ensure that you pay back what you stole. Mubwezi, I have directed the Secretary to the President Cabinet, Mr. Zanga Chikosi, to interdict without pay those public officers on whose direct watch the financial mismanagement occurred. As for the Minister of Labor, who was named by the audit report as having spent COVID funds amounting to $613,000 on his allowances for a foreign trip, I have dropped him from my cabinet accordingly. Even though the minister has since returned the money, his usage of the funds means that the money was unavailable for its intended purpose when it was needed most. And I cannot have in my cabinet any individual who either spend money budgeted for one thing on something else, or do not ask tough questions to ensure that the money they are spending on something was budgeted for that purpose. As far as I'm concerned, anyone who steals or wastes public funds is a traitor to this country. I pray that God's curse will rest on anyone who steals even one kwacha of the public funds that God has entrusted us to use in serving Malawians.
Okay, that is leadership. That is Africa. I think that if we have the will, we can do it.
Yes, Mr. Liu.
Imperialism there. There's no imperialism there. That's a leader taking the responsibility to discipline his people. Recently, Tanzania has established a factory that mines gold. Let me just give a brief account on how we manage gold in Africa. We buy billions of gold in Africa for 40 million. 6-hour flight from Africa to Dubai. It is sold for 60 million. And then it is taken to Fort Knox in Switzerland, where the World Bank is. It is being placed there, and then it pays 45 million a month. From Cameroon to Dubai is 6 hours, 20 million arts. Then the person takes it and put in Fort Knox. He makes 45 million a month from Fort Knox as a reserve. which means in 10 months, the 40 million goal in Cameroon is paying somebody 450 million. That is 540 million per annum for something they got there for 40 million. It will tell us that we don't know how to process our own materials. Now that Tanzania has established a refinery for gold, they now produce gold now in bouillons. They don't sell again locally. You go and sell here. They produce in bouillon and go and plant in Fort Knox. You will discover that that gold alone being produced in Tanzania can boom the just one mineral can boom the economy to any height. Where is colonialism in all these things? Let's have said that anybody who completely blames others for his failure has failed. That's the truth. This man is disciplining poor and mismanaging COVID-19 fund. Is this thing not occurring in Cameroon?
No, it's occurring. It is occurring.
It's occurring here. What stops other country president to also stand and then sound the people who are in question?
So, see, France maybe said we may have to end the program here. We are out of time. Thank you for coming, Andrin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum Leonard.
Okay, and also to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Leo. We need to think towards making Africa great again.
Okay, and to you, Teke Samuel, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leo.
We take the rendezvous on Friday?
Yes, Friday.
Okay. We need to change mindsets.
Of course.
Away from blaming the West and taking our responsibility.
That we are responsible for our own success.
Okay. Tomorrow we are going to be looking at the issue of the political parties in Cameroon. Are they a blessing or a curse to Cameroon? Are we moving forward because of the existence of so many parties, or we are stagnating because of more than 370 political parties? What has been their contribution to the growth and development of this nation? We are going to be discussing that with our guests in the program tomorrow. We want to say thank you to you, Eli and Desmond, and also to you, Bertrand and Noel, and all of you who have worked so hard to producing this program this evening. Not forgetting you, Tabi Tambe Bryant, who is supervising the work we do out there. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Shopping grâce divine. Vous ne serez jamais déçus car nous avons tout ce qu'il vous faut. Les produits de qualité pour vous rendre belle et sublime. Des chaussures, des sacs et les habits pour enfants de grande marque. Shopping grâce divine. Situé à la 3e entrée, venant du Carrefour Anatole, en face de Crédit du Golfe. Première boutique. Essayez la qualité au quotidien. Pour plus d'informations, appelez les numéros 6 99 27 06 42 ou le 6 54 43 14 44. 697 99 22 26. Shopping Grâce Divine by Benedicto Fashion pour satisfaire et notre souci.
My Black Crown, MBC. Nous faisons dans la vente et la livraison des